This film is part of a set of short films made by the dietitians and children's community nurses at South Tees and Newcastle hospitals. The films will provide information on all aspects of using blended foods as a tube feed through gastrostomy tubes. This is called Blended Diet. This first film is an introduction to blended diet, looking at reasons people may choose this as a method of feeding and things to consider before starting out. The second film outlines how to prepare and store blended diet. The third film looks at how to actually give blended diet. And the fourth film will look at troubleshooting advice. Blended diet describes giving blended home foods through a gastrostomy tube into the stomach. Foods are blended to a smooth, single cream or batter type consistency and then given through the gastrostomy tube using a 60ml syringe. Most family meals can be blended. Some adaptations may be needed depending on the type of food. The process of actually blending foods, what to give and how to give the blended diet, is discussed in depth in the second and third films. People choose to use blended food as a type of tube feed due to potential benefits around the tolerance of feeds and improvement in quality of life. The evidence suggests that it can help with symptoms such as reflux and vomiting and improve bowel symptoms such as reducing diarrhea and constipation. And there's social benefits as well of using blended diet. This comes through being able to share foods, everyday foods, and foods in a variety of settings. Blended diet is likely to be tolerated if you can tolerate food or feed going into your stomach. If you have high energy needs or struggle to tolerate larger volumes of feeds, it may make it harder to transition to a full blended diet. So as part of the shared decision-making process, your dietitian will discuss if this feeding method is safe and suitable for you to use. Blenders are essential for making blended foods at home. When starting out, some people like to start with smooth, pre-prepared foods such as smooth yogurts or pouches, as this allows a trial of blended diet without the expense of buying a blender. Blenders come in a wide variety of powers and sizes. In practice, some people will successfully manage to make blended diet with a stick blender, while others prefer to use larger blenders so that they can batch cook. The time spent blending is thought to have the biggest impact on how smooth the final blend is, rather than the power or cost of the blender. Foods should be passed through a sieve only if you think that there's the risk of small solid particles in the blend. These are usually things like fruit pips like strawberry or raspberry seeds or woody herbs. You will need 2 60ml syringes to give blended diet, one for water and one for the actual blended diet itself. If you use extension sets, these may discolour with the foods but will last for the normal length of time. Blended diet can only be given through gastrostomy tubes into the stomach. It is not recommended to give blended diet through nasogastric tubes, as the pressure needed to push the blend through may split the tube. Blended diet as a tube feed should only be used with feeding tubes that go into the stomach and not tubes that are placed into the small bowel, such as jejunal tubes. The ideal tube for having blended diet is a balloon retained gastrostomy button. As this tube becomes blocked, it can easily be replaced. If you do not have a balloon retained gastrostomy and would like to try blended diet, discuss this with your local team. Giving blended foods through a gastrostomy tube into the stomach is a relatively new practice. The main area of concern with this type of feeding method is nutritional adequacy, because in a prescribed feed, the nutritional value is known, and with blended foods, this is a best guess. To get the blend to the correct consistency, you will need to add liquid, so this can reduce the nutritional value of the blend per volume. Sometimes dietitians may advise to add nutrient-rich liquids such as full-fat milk, nutritional supplement drinks, or prescribed tube feed to add extra calories. A further area of concern is that blended diet may cause feeding tubes to block. The risk of this can be reduced through ensuring the blend is smooth and not too thick, and by thoroughly flushing the tube with water after the blend has been given. The risk of foodborne infection should also be considered, as prescribed tube feeds are usually sterile. If you choose to use blended diet, the principles of good food hygiene are essential. The second film contains specific advice around food safety, starting with preparing and cooking foods to blend, and then storing and reheating blended diet. So if you've previously eaten foods by mouth, then you will know of any foods that you cannot tolerate or are allergic to. These foods will also need to be avoided in blended diet. Individuals who have been tube-fed from birth and have never eaten will need to consider food allergies when planning to start blended diet. The general principle is to use your tolerated feed as a base and then add individual foods to this, using a new food every 3 to 4 days. The blended diet will then need to be gradually introduced, starting with a small amount. This will vary based on the age of the person and then increasing the volumes to tolerance. In this situation, your dietitian will give specific advice on how to introduce foods through blended diet. Yes, the amount that blended diet is used is up to the individual. It is fine to use a combination of blended diet and prescribed feed. Some people choose to work towards giving blended diet for every feed, and some only use this for one meal a day, such as breakfast, or when they've prepared a home-cooked meal or for special occasions. There may be times when it's not possible to have blended diet, such as certain hospital admissions, daycare centres or respite settings. Your dietitian will advise if an alternative prescribed feed is needed. So the recommendations are that routine vitamin supplementation is not needed for individuals using blended diet. However, as with all people, there may be times when certain supplements are needed. In the UK, it can be difficult to get enough vitamin D, as sunshine is the major source of this, and this cannot be relied on. So vitamin D supplements may sometimes be advised. The dietitian can assess the types of food being given and will advise that vitamin and mineral supplementation is needed. The way that we start blended diet will vary from person to person. As previously discussed, we need to think about if the person has eaten before and risk of food allergies. We also need to think about feed tolerance and how the feeds are given now. If the tube-fed individual tolerates bolus feeds, then the starting plan may be to gradually start working towards replacing one of these bolus feeds with blended diet. And then when everyone is happy that the blended diet is providing enough nutrition and is tolerated well, then consider replacing a further bolus feed with more blended diet. If the person can only tolerate a slow, continuous feed, then the method of introduction may start with very small amounts mixed with the normal tube feed and increase this as tolerated. In this situation, the dietitian will work out the best way to introduce blended diet based on the person's previous feed tolerance. The next film will look at how to prepare blended diet.